Hi, I'm Kate from the University of Sydney, and we're going to talk about copyright and your thesis. I hope that by the end of this short video, you'll be aware that the university has an intellectual property policy and understand who owns copyright in higher degree by research theses. I want you all to understand when to seek permission for third-party material and how to get started on this process. Most of all, I want you to know where to go for more information and help. So what's copyright? Copyright is a type of intellectual property. Very simply, copyright is a set of rights in creative works, granted exclusively to the copyright owner to reproduce the material, and for some material, the right to perform or show the work to the public. Copyright owners can prevent others from reproducing or communicating their work without their permission, or they may sell or transfer their rights to someone else. Copyright protects most of the stuff that we would consider works, including creative works such as poems and novels, and scholarly works such as books and journal articles, and your thesis. It also protects other things such as films, sound recordings, performances and broadcasts. So copyright protects creative works. But it's important to understand that it doesn't protect everything. It doesn't protect ideas, only the expression of an idea. You have to write your idea down or record it in some way. Copyright has a time limit. This is normally 70 years after the death of the author. After copyright has expired, you don't need anyone's permission to copy a work or to communicate it to the public, but you still have to respect the moral rights of the author to be named as the creator of the work. You also have to exercise your own academic integrity by citing that work. Copyright doesn't protect raw data and facts, because it's about human creativity. A fact is a fact is a fact. It's not creative, so no one can claim copyright. Ditto raw data generated by a machine or a sensor. But the arrangement or interpretation of facts and data can be protected by copyright. For example, in a list, or a visualization, or a figure, or even a table, even the phone book. Copyright doesn't protect little things like titles and slogans. We use trademark law for this. It may or may not protect your tweets. They might be too small to be protected by copyright. What I want you to remember is copyright doesn't protect everything, and that copyright is just one piece of the puzzle when it comes to intellectual property. So who owns copyright in your thesis? It's really important to understand that the author or creator of the work is not always the copyright owner. For example, the copyright in a scholarly work, a journal article that you wrote, for example, that might be owned by a publisher, even though you're the creator. The copyright in the works that you create might be owned by your employer as a condition of your employment contract. For example, this talk, it's owned by the University of Sydney, even though I'm the author. However, when it comes to higher degree by research theses, students own copyright. You own the copyright in your thesis. So what about when you copy other people's content while you're conducting your research and when you're writing up your thesis? In Australian copyright, there's a concept called fair dealing. You can read more about fair dealing on the university's copyright website and on the Australian Copyright Council website. The fair dealing exceptions in the Copyright Act allow works and sound recordings, films, broadcasts and television broadcasts to be used in certain circumstances and subject to certain conditions without the permission of the copyright owner. So when you're researching your thesis topic, you might be copying a wide range of materials that are protected by copyright. So published books, journal articles, stuff from the internet, artworks, illustrations, even excerpts of TV programs or movies. In this case, it's most likely that you can use the copyright material of others under the fair dealing exception in the Australian Copyright Act, known as fair dealing for research and study. This exception only applies to dealings with works and audiovisual items for your own personal research and study. However, you don't need to be enrolled in a course of study at a university or a school or a TAFE to rely on this exception. It still applies once you've completed your studies. When you're writing up your manuscript, you may also be using works under another fair dealing exception, fair dealing for criticism and review. For example, you may review or critically analyse a figure, a table, or even an article from another academic author, and then include an excerpt or an image in your thesis to illustrate your argument. Is anyone undertaking a thesis by publication? I ask because I'm getting a lot of queries about this at the moment. It's a great way to do your thesis because it can get you over the line for those first publications so you can start building your research profile. However, from a copyright perspective, it can be tricky because when you publish, it's likely that you will transfer your copyright or grant an exclusive license to publish to the publisher. So to include your publication as a chapter in your thesis, you'll need to obtain permission from the copyright owner of your article. You can't rely on fair dealing in this context. The good news is, this process can be a lot easier than it sounds. Here are some things to check to see whether or not you need to seek permission to include an article in your thesis. First of all, check your publishing contract. You could check whether you can obtain a free license via RightsLink. RightsLink is an American copyright clearance platform managed by the US Copyright Clearance Center. Closer to home, you could also try the Copyright Agency's new rights portal. If those don't work, then you may need to contact your publisher for permission. However, while platforms like RightsLink make it a little easier for thesis by publication authors to obtain permission, seeking permission and obtaining clearances to use third-party copyright material in your thesis can be time-consuming. When you submit your thesis, you currently have a choice. You can make your thesis open access, or you can make it local access only. Local access means access by UniKey or upon request from a member of the public. Open access means anyone can read your thesis and download it for their personal research and study via the internet. Your thesis is a brilliant information resource for other higher degrees by research students to learn from, and a source of quality information for the research community more broadly. Open access or not, a thesis is a publicly accessible document. Unless you have an embargo on your thesis, and occasionally there are really good reasons to do this, anyone in the world can access your thesis in electronic format. They just have to fill in a request form, and it's covered by specific provisions within the Copyright Act. Open access just makes it easier for people to read, access, and hopefully cite your thesis and your publications, so you can start to get your work out there. So when you go to submit your thesis, you'll need to obtain permission from the copyright owners of any substantial third-party copyright material included in your thesis. I'm not talking about brief quotes. I'm talking about whole images, artworks, figures, and entire journal articles in the case of thesis by publication. Again, you will not be able to rely on the fair dealing exceptions in this context. As I mentioned, seeking permission and obtaining clearances to use third-party copyright material can be simple, but it also can be time-consuming. So I'd recommend you start early in your research and writing process. Factor in lots of time and contact the library for assistance. It'll be worth it for a smooth and easy thesis lodgement and completion process. And if you choose open access, it'll be worth it to be ready to send every single person you know an open access link to your work. Facebook, Twitter, get it out there. The University of Sydney Library has created a copyright guide on our website. There is a whole section on copyright in your thesis and another on copyright and publishing. Thank you for watching. For more information, or if you have questions, go to the link on your screen or contact the University of Sydney Library.